So Angie, are they on the? This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of Tuesday, March the 26th, 2024 will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so that council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to our community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have the minutes before us for March the 12th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Are there any errors or omissions? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Koulis, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And we have with us today Sandra Robinson, who's the manager of Children's Services for the City of Peterborough, and Nancy Fisher, who's the consultant with Peterborough Child Care Expansion. And they're going to be talking to us today. Make sure your microphone is on.
It is. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today to present the city's childcare and growth plan for 2023-26. With me today, as you mentioned, is Nancy Fisher. She's a consultant that I've been working closely with on the implementation of our plan. The plan was presented to the Greater Peterborough Joint Services Committee on March 14th. And so my apologies to those who were present at that meeting. There is some duplication of information in today's presentation, but we've also included some new information that's specific to Selwyn Township. And there we go. So in terms of childcare, it is a really big system that we support. It includes both the city and the county. At the end of 2023, there were approximately 4,400 licensed spaces spread over 59 sites that operate both in the city and county, plus an additional 73 licensed home childcare providers across our communities. The overall system supports children from birth to age 12, and there's a total investment of $13.3 million of core funding that supports the licensed childcare operations in our community. So though it's a large system, it's certainly not large enough. There are approximately 3,500 children on wait lists waiting for childcare. Some of these children will age out before the family is ever able to access a licensed childcare space, which is really unfortunate. It creates a significant pressure for families who are trying to work and return to school. In Selwyn specifically, excluding the Buckhorn, and I'll speak to why we've included Buckhorn on this slide, but excluding Buckhorn, there are 498 licensed spaces and a number of home childcare spaces as well. And there are currently 958 children on wait lists across the Selwyn programs. So it's a significant number when you consider the overall size of the wait list. So for the purposes of today, I have included the Buckhorn sites primarily because those sites are so close to the Selwyn border that the majority of families accessing care in those sites reside in Selwyn Township, and so they support the Selwyn Township residents. So in March of 2022, many of you may have heard this in the news, Ontario reached a $13.2 billion agreement with the federal government for a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. The new system is intended to lower fees to an average of $10 a day by 2026 and improve access to childcare spaces for families no matter where they're living. And under the agreement, Ontario will support the creation of 86,000 new spaces by December 2026. And in Peterborough, funding is being provided for the creation of 485 new spaces. The other thing it's worth noting is that while we support a system 0 to 12 in terms of licensed childcare, the funding to support the Canada-wide Early Learning Initiative is only intended to support children 0 to 5, not the 6 to 12-year-olds. So fee reductions will only be available to those children in that age range of 0 to 5. So in terms of this new initiative and this new system, financially, what this means is that we'll receive an additional, or we did receive an additional $15.5 million in 2023 to support the implementation of, we call it CWELC. Others call it $10 a day childcare. So if you hear me say CWELC, that's what I'm referring to. And 2024, we received $17.8 million in funding to support this rollout. And this number will increase year over year until full implementation is achieved. And so right now, when this was announced in the news, people were led to believe that $10 a day happened almost immediately in 2022. That is not the case. The province implemented a phased approach where we're currently at 50% reduction in fees. So on average for a preschool fee, parents are paying approximately $21 a month or a day, sorry, for their licensed childcare. So to improve access for families, as I spoke about, with the goal of achieving 86,000 new spaces, Peterborough was provided and will receive funding for the creation of 485 new spaces. The ministry established these space targets for us, so we didn't create these in terms of each year, what that rollout might look like. We have a small bit of flexibility between years, but this is the target that we're working towards each year. The funding will be provided to support both the startup costs for these new spaces and also the ongoing operating costs associated with the spaces. And we have requested an additional 162 spaces to support the needs in our community. And at this point, we've not received confirmation of approval on those spaces. So as part of the plan, we were required to identify priority neighborhoods where we would focus our attention in creating these new spaces. The neighborhoods were selected using available local data that we had and looking at our existing needs in the community. So we have identified 6 priority neighborhoods. We have Chemong and Northcrest and Southwest and Southeast Clonsilla in the city. And in the county, we've identified Selwyn and Cavan Monaghan townships. And it's worth noting that proportionately, when we look at the wait list for childcare and the population numbers for Selwyn, that Selwyn Township has the highest number of childcare applications, which sits at about 15% of the total wait list. And according to the 2021 census data, Selwyn also has the greatest number of children across the townships in all age categories. So that's 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and 10 to 14. So staff have developed an open application process that's posted on the city's website. Interested individuals may apply to expand childcare or create childcare. The maximum startup funding available per project is $350,000, and that's for a maximum of 50 spaces. In 2023, we opened 90 new spaces. We're on track to open another 100 this year, and we've just actually received a memorandum of understanding for a new project in the city that will open in early 2025, and that will be for 49 additional spaces. So we're well on our way to achieving our targets as we've worked through this process. However, to date, we have had limited growth in our township areas, both in Selwyn and Cavan Monaghan. And so we are, focusing our attention on both of these townships as we move forward, with the hope of creating new spaces in 2025 and 2026 in both of these townships. So for our plan to be successful, there are a number of factors that are at play. We do require sustainable funding. Operating funding is sustainable. The startup is one time, and our experience to date has been that the one-time funding of $350,000 is not sufficient to cover the costs of renovations that are required for these spaces that we're renovating. We also know we need system coordination and collaboration, and this occurs through a well-established early years planning network and our childcare expansion committee. Staffing is a critical success factor. We've invested a fair bit of time and energy and money into a workforce strategy to support the staffing needs around recruitment and retention. But we know we still have work to do as we think about the growth in the system and the additional staff that we're going to need to support that growth. And space, of course, is becoming one of our biggest challenges. We really do need help in finding appropriate space where we can operate licensed childcare. We need help with some of the costs associated with the significant renovations. And so we've spent a fair bit of time looking at new opportunities, grants, partners, champions that we can work with to really help move us along in terms of the expansion. To date, our expansion committee has been working with many community partners, but we're starting to run out of viable options. And so as we think about possibilities for the future expansion, we've started to really consider the private sector and the opportunities that may exist with our private sector partners as they're developing new housing developments, they're developing new retirement living complexes, whatever, sort of wherever they've sort of got their finger in communities. We're really looking at those opportunities as a possibility for childcare. And then in terms of, doesn't want to advance for me. Oh, there we go. Let me advance through those. So in terms of what we have to lose, it's significant. So other than the loss of opportunities for children and families, there is a financial impact if we're not able to expand our spaces. So in 2023, the impact was roughly $3 million we stood to lose. We know that this number will grow as we move forward with implementation. We also know that if we're creating 485 new spaces, we'll need approximately 100 staff to operate those spaces. And so we know in terms of research that it demonstrates that access to licensed childcare not only benefits children and families, it also benefits our community in a number of ways. It benefits us by increasing the number of women in the workforce. It decreases the need for social assistance, and it also increases household income. So in terms of next steps, from a municipal perspective, where feasible and appropriate, we're really hopeful that Selwyn Council will support the development of new community-based nonprofit childcare spaces in municipally owned land and buildings, and considering your surplus lands and other emerging opportunities. We're hopeful that you'll support our expansion committee as we work with other community partners and businesses, again, to create new spaces in our community and looking at underutilized buildings, underutilized lands. We've done a fair bit of outreach to churches to date. They make a lot of logical good sense when they often are vacant during the week, but we need more opportunities. And then really helping us to make some of those critical connections and assisting us with challenges such as zoning where they may exist, because we know not all spaces are zoned appropriately for childcare. And so it's quite a process to, look at changing those zoning bylaws. Is there a possibility of doing that? Who do we work with making those connections? and support with our work with other levels of governments as we think about resolving sort of the implementation challenges that we're experiencing related to timeliness. 2026 is looming. It's going to be here before we know it, and we really feel like we may run out of time. Thinking about our workforce strategy and trying to move that along in terms of a provincial direction on that, and infrastructure support that we need to help with the creation of the new spaces. And at the joint services meeting, Mayor Senes did inquire about the land at Redpath. We are very much aware that the school had stopped using it, and originally it had gone up for sale, was our understanding. We have doubled back with KPR. We work really closely with them as a partner. At this point, they didn't have anything new to tell us about that property. It's certainly still on our radar, and we'll wait to hear anything further about that, but we'll certainly report back to you following any knowledge and update. So thank you so much. That's the completion of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone had questions.
Certainly, and I will pass it along to council to ask questions. It appears you're going in the right direction, although not as quickly as we'd all like, because there is such a big waiting list. So do we have some questions? Councillor Boyka.
Thank you for your presentation. And congratulations on getting the pictures of those kids. I mean, melt our hearts with the cutest kids on the planet.
Right.
Yeah, very effective. Two questions, and it basically goes to saying that I personally will support, and I can't imagine the rest of council not supporting that. When you say you would like surplus land or buildings that the township may have, could you, or have not necessarily right at this moment, could you provide to staff, what are the criteria that you would need? Would you need playground space around parking? And if you could provide staff with the criteria, maybe you've done that already, with criteria for those buildings and surplus land, and where in the township would be the locations for that where you see the greatest need? And again, maybe you've done this already.
So thank you very much for your question. There are very specific requirements for licensed childcare. So we do have to have a building that's suitable or suitable to be renovated. The legislation and the regulations that support licensed childcare are extensive. And so there's a square footage, 35 square feet per child is required of indoor unobstructed space. When we're looking at outdoor space, it's 65 square feet. The playgrounds have to be adjacent to the building. So there are a number of requirements that need to be in place. So we most definitely can provide that information for you and for staff. And then in terms of your second question.
Location.
Oh, location. Yes, thank you. So we have a fairly nice, licensed childcare is nicely spread across the township right now. We've got one option or a couple options in Bridge North, a couple in Ennismore, and then a couple in Lakefield. What our experience has been is that because of the proximity, families and the need, families are willing to travel, whether they live in Lakefield to Bridge North to Ennismore, because they need it. So any of those communities, we would see as a good fit. We haven't identified one in particular, in part because space is so hard to find. And so we don't want to limit our search to only one community. Similarly, with our city, we have identified priority neighborhoods, but again, we know Peterborough's not that large. It's not like we're living in the GTA and travel is an hour to, from one neighborhood to the other. And so it's not ideal for families to have to travel out of their neighborhood, especially if they don't have transportation. However, it's not impossible in terms of our transit system and people having cars and things. So, but certainly any of the communities where we can find space, we would welcome that opportunity.
That'd be great if you could provide that information, the criteria that you would need legally and what you would prefer.
Yeah, yeah.
Two categories, and provide
We like
staff.
purpose-built spaces, but that's not always possible.
Exactly. Thank you.
And of course, we're always considering accessibility when you think about young families with babies and
Yes.
young children. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the report, Nancy. I noticed in the report, it says City of Peterborough, but if it's City and County Peterborough, obviously, and you're a city employee, so that's I'm sure why it's there. I'm grandfather and an expected grandfather, and I know how difficult it's been for my daughters to find places. So just to follow up to Councillor Boyko's question, is there a part of Selwyn Township that is in more need of spaces than another? I know you said in general, we need them everywhere, but is there part of the township where we should be focusing more of our attention on available lands? And I know staff is bringing a report back to council sometime this year on available lands for development. So if you could tell us what your thoughts are on where the biggest need is in the township as far as location, I appreciate that.
So to give an absolute answer, I don't have that, but we can definitely get that information. We haven't analyzed to that degree at this point, but we can certainly do that and look at, where do we see the greatest number of requests? We have that data readily available, and we'd certainly be happy to provide that to you. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. So we do have a proposed resolution that we receive the presentation and that the Township of Selwyn support the efforts of the Expansion Committee by keeping them informed of any potential new developments, underutilized spaces, surplus lands, etc., that could potentially support the development of childcare spaces in Selwyn. I'm looking for someone to move that recommendation. Councillor Henry, and seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We now have Julie Grant, who is going to give us an accessible playground proposal.
Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present today. My name is Julie. I'm an Ennismore resident, a mom of a child with special needs, the creator of the website accessibleplaygroundsontario.ca, and I am presenting this initiative as a community volunteer in partnership with the Ennismore Optimist Club. This initiative is named Jude's Joy, is an inclusive playground project for Selwyn Township that would provide our community and region with an extraordinary play space that has optimal accessibility. The Ennismore Optimist Club is in full support of this initiative and will be the not-for-profit leading this project. We are requesting approval to construct the first accessible playground that utilizes rubber surfacing at the Ennismore Waterfront Park. This initiative was inspired by my son, Jude. Jude suffered a hypoxic brain injury at birth, which left him with a lifelong disability, cerebral palsy, and global developmental delay. At the age of 2.5, Jude is currently unable to stand or walk independently. This past summer, we purchased his first walker to give him the ability to explore and play without physical assistance. To help Jude master the ability to use his walker and promote his learning in a fun setting, we wanted to integrate his walker into his outdoor play experiences at playgrounds. Unfortunately, we immediately experienced barriers at our local playgrounds because Jude was unable to propel his walker on wood, fiber, or sand surfaces, which are the only playground surface options in our region. To support Jude's development, we needed to find him playgrounds with rubber surfacing and other accessible play elements. Sadly, finding detailed information on playgrounds was extremely difficult. So in October of 2023, after calling and emailing over 300 municipalities across Ontario, I created a website database highlighting the location of the playgrounds in Ontario with rubber surfacing. Completing the research for this website inspired me to begin this initiative. From my research, I can confidently tell you that the closest inclusive playground with rubber surfacing is 64 kilometers away in Port Hope, and that the second closest playground with similar features is 72 kilometers away in Port Perry. This is a huge distance for a person or family to have to travel just to use their mobility device with ease at a playground. The Optimists value all children and their human right to barrier-free play, and have generously partnered in this mission to build the first inclusive play space in Selwyn Township, to bring out the best in our youth and community. Inclusive can be defined as a universally designed play space that prioritizes the removal of barriers to engage those with and without exceptionalities. Jude is only one example of how an inclusive space can bring out the best in kids. There is some sound on the video, but I don't think it's turned up there. Playgrounds are more than just child's play. They bring us together to connect us. They stimulate our sensory systems and spark joy. They are a place where people can learn, play, and grow together. For many children, a playground can be the setting where they learn things like turn taking, imaginative or competitive play, fine motor development, and gross motor milestones like climbing, balancing, and coordinating right and left-sided movements. A well-designed playground can truly support the development of the whole child, cognitively, physically, socially, and emotionally, which they stand to benefit from their entire lives as they become active members of our society. When a playground is designed to be inclusive, the benefits go far beyond children, as it then becomes a space that supports multi-generational connections. Parents with disabilities can play alongside their children. Older adults with developmental delays or dementia can engage in play, and grandparents with mobility aids can safely play alongside their grandchildren. Unfortunately, not all playgrounds are created equally, and not all playgrounds are inclusive. Some common accessibility barriers that we often see at playgrounds include the lack of a firm and stable pathway to the space, the lack of ramped access or ground level play opportunities, and the overuse of wood fiber surfacing. If you've ever tried to roll or push a wheelchair or walker in wood chips, you know that it is extremely difficult and in most cases impossible to do so independently. This next video compares a child's ability to use her wheelchair at a playground with wood fiber surfacing versus how easily she can roll on rubber tile surfacing. I think that first link, I'm pretty sure is the one, but if you can't play it, that's totally fine too. Just skip it. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. There we go. An inclusive playground with optimal accessibility is a pressing need within our region, and these are some examples to support that. Number one, the 64-kilometer travel distance to the nearest inclusive playground. This is further supported by the 2022 Peterborough Accessibility Public Survey that includes direct quotes from the public describing the playground accessibility barriers in our region. Number two, our senior population numbers. Data from the Age-Friendly Peterborough Impact Report shows that out of our 11 catchment areas, Selwyn ranks third highest at 24.6% for people over the age of 65, which is higher than the provincial average for this age group. Number three, as noted in the 2017 Selwyn Recreation Services Plan, 58% of households were not able to participate in parks and recreation activities as often as they would like, which was an increase from 2011. The lack of inclusive play spaces is likely to be contributing to this. And additionally, the AODA reports that 38% of Canadian children with a disability almost never get physical exercise outside of school. And number four, Peterborough has the busiest 5 counties children's center site. Last fiscal year, the site provided services to over 3,000 clients. These numbers clearly show the importance of prioritizing accessibility in all forms for people of all ages, especially if we consider that accessibility requirements are something that any one of us could need at any point unexpectedly. We are proposing a revitalization of the space at the Ennismore Waterfront Park, in which we would add an additional play area that has inclusive play elements and rubber surfacing. Our inclusive playground would be built into the green space and would sit adjacent to the current playground that was built in 2011, which was led by the Ennismore Optimist Club at that time. We have collaborated with Henderson Recreation, which is the company that was used for the project in 2011. And after thorough review of their inclusive play elements, we have received sample designs. This design shows the inclusive elements that we have prioritized and include poured-in-place rubber surfacing, which is shown in brown as the base, a ramped primary structure with game elements and slides, music elements, a swing bay with an accessible swing, a play tot structure, and an accessible merry-go-round. We have prioritized a play tot structure because it provides a play opportunity for younger children. It would expand the user age range at this park and is great for those learning to sit, crawl, or stand. The accessible merry-go-round is also incredibly important to include because it sits seamlessly at ground level to offer a spinning experience without having to leave your mobility device, and because it currently does not exist at any of the parks in our region. These are photos of music elements through Henderson Recreation's affiliated company, which are visually appealing and are geared towards people of all ages and abilities. The specifications for our design options include a 2,200 to 2,700 square foot space, quoted costs ranging from $185,000 to $208,000 for the poured-in-place rubber and play components combined. The rubber portion is approximately 48% of that total cost. A 16-week lead time from the time of paying the initial deposit. We requested separate estimates from Henderson Recreation for the site preparation portion, should we choose to go through them for the whole project, which was estimated at $19,000 to $23,000. Lastly, there is the ability for an additional 15% savings off of the rubber portion if we source it directly through the rubber company itself, separate from Henderson's Recreation. To summarize, our inclusive playground project is a revitalization of the play space at the Ennismore Waterfront Park, led by the Ennismore Optimist Club. Should the project move forward following successful fundraising, our goal is 2025 construction. The space would become a destination park, which would increase tourism, as it would be the only playground in our region with rubber surfacing. The project aligns with the township's recreation services plan and strategic plan. It is in collaboration with Selwyn's Parks and Recreation Department, and we have received a signed letter of support from them for this project. We would be utilizing the Canadian playground company, Henderson Recreation, that designs and builds inclusive playgrounds and has experience with this park from 2011. And it provides an opportunity for future growth and community engagement at this space, such as for programming or proposals for additional inclusive elements like accessible tables. We have received immense support, emotional support towards our mission, and this chart highlights those that have signed our letter of emotional support, some of which include Five Counties Children's Center, St. Martin Elementary School, the Down Syndrome Association of Peterborough, the Kawartha Center for Redefining Aging, a member on the review committee for the AODA Design of Public Spaces, and various local businesses and community members. Some next steps for the Ennismore Optimist Playground Committee include opening a bank account for the project for fundraising and grant applications, finalize promotional materials, engage the public and present our project to other service clubs for a hopeful collaboration, continue to research and prepare for grant applications, finalize our fundraising plan to include donation levels and recognition, and promote the project at upcoming events. We are proposing the roles of the township to include endorse the project in principle, issue charitable tax receipts for project donations, assist with marketing and project promotion with a press release and links on your website, provide grant writing advice and assistance as able, Include the construction of an accessible pathway to the play space and accessible outhouse in 2025 budget. And lastly, to maintain the project after completion. The need exists. Let's be the change to bring out the best in kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Julie, and thanks to the Ennismore Optimist Club. I know that there are members here today for your support of this project. Are there any questions of Julie? We do have a report that's coming from Mike Richardson that is in conjunction with this, that we're going to hear from Mike. Deputy Mayor Black, you have a question?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Stennis. I'm a former respiratory therapist. I don't know if Councillor Henry needs any help back there.
It doesn't sound good.
Doesn't sound very good. Might need my help at some point. You know, having said that, I certainly understand what a hypoxic event at birth, the challenges that creates for you as a parent moving forward. So it's very difficult to manage children to begin with. And then not having recreation is an important part. I was involved in a charity golf tournament in Belleville for many, many years, Rick Mahar. And part of that we raised $3 million over, I think, about 15 years. It's no longer in place anymore. But along with that, we did build an accessible, I think it was like a big pirate ship or something. It was beautiful. It was great, great effort. We had a lot of ex-professional athletes come and raised a lot of money. So it's a great event, and certainly there's lots of opportunity, I think, and a lot of support in the community for this. It's shocking to me that there isn't anything between basically Port Hope and there's nothing in the city of Peterborough even that's accessible. So Selwyn again can be first in the area. So I do appreciate that. You know, we've just got a grant for $60,000 for an accessible kayak canoe launch, which certainly can support children as well as adults and seniors. So I think that's a great step forward for us as well. And so one of the questions I have around one of the asks, and I don't disagree with any of the asks, I think it's a great project for council and the township to support, but it's with respect to income tax receipts, the township doing that versus the Optimist Club. Are they able to provide receipts directly for thanks, Ed.
We are not for profit organization, but not charitable.
Not a charitable, okay.
So we can't issue tax receipts, so that's where having the account that.
Right.
would make that difference.
That's there. Thank you. Yeah, that's really my only question. I think it's a great project. Been there, done that, and
Thank you.
be fully supportive of it.
Thank you so much.
And Councillor Koulis.
Through you, I have questions, but I actually think Mike might speak to them, so I'm going to hold them off. But I do want to note, if you could provide, maybe it's through email to the staff, your fundraising, not strategy, but calendar. I'd love to be involved in some of that stuff, or at least know the dates where I can participate and help out. So
Amazing. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions.
We do have the video, I think, if
Okay.
it's just
you
a couple
ready?
seconds.
Just 20 seconds.
As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It certainly is true in this case. Thank you very much, Julie. And Mike, we will now turn to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will try and keep this less than 1,000 words. Thank you very much, Julie. That was exceptionally well done. I'd actually, I'm sure council's had a chance to read my report, so I won't say much more because Julie did such an incredible job on summarizing everything. We are just here to reiterate that though we've met several times with Julie and with the small group, and then a couple times with the larger group to sort of talk about what everyone can bring to the table and what everybody can do. We've been very tried to be very supportive of it and be clear that these are some of the things, as Julie stated, that we would like to commit to. Certainly that council endorse the project. And then secondly, that if council endorses that, we would be able to contribute through in-kind and look at adding to the accessible pathway that we put in 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago. And then finally, to be able to provide the donation receipts, the charitable tax receipts, since we are the only one within the group that is capable of doing that.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a recommendation before us. Is that the report of the manager of recreation services entitled Inclusive Playground Installation Project at Innismore Waterfront Park be received for information, as well as Julie's presentation, because I don't think we received that. So we'll add that to the recommendation. And that council review the proposal from Julie Grant, working in collaboration with the Ennismore Optimists for the Inclusive Playground Installation Project at Innismore Waterfront Park Plan, and endorse in principle their plan to fundraise and coordinate this project, subject to successfully raising the necessary funds. And that the township contribution to the project be through in-kind staff support and installation of an accessible pathway from the parking lot to the playground, to be included in a future budget year and pending the group's successful fundraising efforts. And further, the staff be directed to accept donations, issue receipts under the township's official receipts policy, and thereafter grant all collected funds to the Ennismore Optimists until the project is completed, or up to December 31st, 2025. And that, subject to council endorsement, regular updates at key project milestones be provided to council. I'm looking for someone to move that. Certainly.
Through you. So to be clear, I totally support this, but I'm in the process of working with the school board to put in accessible play structures at my children's school, and it is a lot. And so I want to clarify what this actually looks like at the municipal level, because with school boards, as soon as the frost is in, the play structure is no longer accessible. The children are not allowed to be on it for liability issues. So what does liability look like in the township using an accessible structure? And are we maintaining it in the winter? Are we allowing access in the winter?
Mike?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't stop access throughout the winter. There's no features on there that wouldn't be, if they're covered in snow, you're not going to get onto them for the most part. But we certainly don't lock them out or anything like that. And some of the elements, the music elements, certainly some of the slides, we do see play at many of our playgrounds all year round. It's just harder and different. In some cases, when they come off a slide and land in a foot of snow, I'm sure it's even more fun.
So a follow-up there is, do we know what the impact for liability insurance is going to be if we do something like this? Like, is this a unique project that might shift how much it's going to cost us each year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't think we've specifically looked at that, but I can't see where there would be a change but our clerk's department is probably more prepared to.
Yeah, we would have to add it as an asset, and there would be a premium applied to the structure itself. Like our liability insurance is relative to the claims against the township. So it wouldn't automatically, by virtue of installing the playground, just automatically increase our liability.
So I do have two more follow-ups.
Okay.
So I also want to clarify, now that we're putting in an accessible path, are we maintaining it in the winter?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, no different. Any of our paths that are limestone screening, whether they're a trail, whether they don't get winter maintenance. So to the pavilion, currently we have a path to the beach, path to the pavilion, and then this would be a third branch of that pathway. No screening pathways are maintained throughout the township, so it would be treated the same as all other screening pathways.
I recognize that there's all different types of ages and stages with accessibility in people's lives, but this just seems like in the winter, accessibility is not going to be necessarily there. So I just think we need to consider that, because if we're going to put this in and we're going to say it's accessible, let's make it accessible as much as we can. And then my last question here is, we're talking about the Ennismore waterfront in regards to the pop-up market. I think if we support this, we should remove the pop-up market from that location, because I just don't think, I think it's gonna be too crowded of a space if we have permanent structures for pop-up markets with everything that is needed for an accessible space for children there.
Angela?
Yeah, we actually did talk about that with Julie. It's up to council if you want to take that off the table. I would recommend we leave it for now, just to study and look at it. There are some other possible locations where the pop-up could go. And it actually ties in with Julie's feedback about making the park a destination. So if we're going to attract people to come here specifically because of the accessible playground structure, you could actually have other amenities there that would kind of support people coming to use the park, because there really isn't a whole lot in Ennismore.
Yeah.
So actually, Julie thought it was kind of a neat potential opportunity. So it's up to council, but she's definitely aware of it, and we think it could be complementary, and we might want to just not eliminate it without having a good look at that opportunity.
Sure, I totally support the idea of getting data. I just want to let everyone know who are not aware of the pop-up. It was the last option on the list and we were all questioning it, but yeah, let's collect the data and move from there. And maybe one last question, I'm sorry, but in regards to accessibility and permanent structures, there's no washrooms at Ennismore waterfront. So are we going to provide washrooms that are accessible if it's going to be an accessible location?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I want to clarify two things. One, there are washrooms. So from May 5th. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not year round.
but that's the same as at many other, like if you go to Chemong Park, or you go to Paul J. English Park, or you go to some of the locations in off hours when we don't have the arena open for summer activities, whether it's tennis, whether it's softball, outdoor porta potties are not just accessible, but your only option. And I did want to clarify, because you were talking about the winter access. Presently, we don't do any winter maintenance on that parking lot either. So that would be quite a change if we were talking about that, but that would have to be something to consider if that was the direction the council wanted to go.
Yeah, lots to consider. Thank you for letting me ask my laundry list.
Right. Now, is there someone willing to move the recommendation? Councillor, are you putting your hand up? Councillor Henry? All right, thank you. And seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you to the group. Look forward to future meetings to talk about this with the progress. All right, we are now into question period. If a member of the public has a question, if you can please go to the podium, give your name and address.
Hi, I'm Guy Hanchett, and my address is 18 Dane Court Street in Lakefield, and I have a question.
Yes.
And initially, I had attempted to make a submission that was going to result in an item on the agenda, but there was an oversight in my request, and as a result, I was given a choice of waiting 2 weeks or making a question right now. So I guess my question is, I'm not sure how to do this right now, but if you agree to extract the thing from regular correspondence as an item that's already there, then we can maybe have a more full discussion about it later on in this meeting. So otherwise, I'd like to talk about the issue itself.
So
Sorry,
just a
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
So this is really question period. It's not a delegation.
I understand.
Yeah, so,
So my question is, will council agree to remove that from correspondence that's just going to be passed and rubber stamped, and have a discussion about it later in the meeting?
right? Councillor Boyko.
I was planning on removing item 19, which is the OEB decision, that letter and your letter for discussion.
Thank you. Then I guess I'll wait. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that,
Well,
I'm always mystified by the
Pull it
process.
during
I'm sorry.
correspondence,
Okay.
Mr. Hanchett. Okay, thank you. Right.
Yeah, so just want to clarify,
Yeah.
if it's pulled by council, council will discuss it. So Mr. Hanchett, if you did have a specific question, you might want to ask it now.
I actually think that the proposal that I sent in sort of speaks for
Okay,
itself.
yeah.
I think he's read.
I agree.
He's read the letter, he's not there. He's
Yep.
sitting on there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
All right.
we do have another question, and of course, my computer was emailed, so just give me 1 second. It fell asleep as I was chatting. Okay, so it was a question that came in from Robin Nelson, sorry, no address. And it's related to item 5D. Oh, I think it's the accessible docks. Sorry, yes. So $73,000 is a lot of money. My question is, how many people in Selwyn requested the need for these docks? If you can't get into a kayak or canoe without these aids, is it safe for you to be in them? The cost is coming out of budget for seniors, which I would think could be better spent on the benefit of far more seniors than those who want to get into a kayak. I'd like to see the study that was done on how many requested or will benefit from this expenditure. Thank you.
All right, so who wants to answer that question?
Well, we can provide a response to the individual, just
Okay.
to clarify the money that was received for the accessible dock and the easy dock. 60,000 of that is a grant from the ministry. So we made an application and we're successful. We'll let them know there was no study done to support that. We just submitted the request to the ministry and obviously made a good case for it. And I think we can provide some information that it's not just for seniors, it would be for everybody. And there are, we'll outline the features of it and the person can take the answer accordingly.
Okay, appreciate that. Actually, I think I mentioned when we were receiving the grant that it's for all ages and stages. There are, it doesn't matter what the age is. Yeah, it's accessibility and you don't have to have well, I think getting into a kayak or canoe can be challenging no matter what. So this can help everyone. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I was gonna say, Zach and Sam did a great job in the presentation saying it was for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen use a presentation here today for children to use. And I know I've only been for 25 years and I've got it in twice because I'm scared of strapped to, to try and get into it. But I've got my swimming bag from when I was 12 and I'm afraid to get in the canoe, not because I'll tip over and can't swim, but just the embarrassment of kind of doing it, and probably the video following around these days, will certainly end up on the internet for me for sure.
There you go. There's a good reason right there. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. Accessibility is a curious thing because we never actually know when it's going to happen in our lives. I was running along, everything was great in life, and then all of a sudden I had to have open heart surgery. I spent 2.5 years going through rehab. And I happened to take up kayaking in that period of time. Much to the chagrin of my, I guess my own dignity, got into the kayak one day with my kids and pretty much needed to be rescued because I was trapped in the thing and turned it upside down.
Oh my God.
You never know when you might actually need an accessibility aids, regardless of age, because accessibility aids, they're not always a permanent situation. They're temporary things, and sometimes the more that we use them, the less that we actually need them because it improves our endurance and our health overall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to our municipal officers and staff reports. And the first one, Elaine, is going to be talking about Woodland Acres water and sewer budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a joint report from Manager of Public Works, Adam, and myself. The Woodland Acres budget's always treated separate from the taxation process because it is only dealing with water and sewer in the Woodland Acres service area. This year's budget, well, we do have some capital included there in terms of communications, and that will set us up for the Lakefield operation to take care of Woodland Acres. Other than that, it's I guess what we would say is almost like a business as usual budget. Other than it only reflects 6 months of the PUG contract and then 6 months of the Lakefield operators taking care of the service area. So because of that, and because it's the first year of that operation, we felt it was appropriate to just keep the rates as is for this year, get 6 months of operating, and then take a look. We still are making reserve contributions. We still have operating revenues that we could draw on if there's any operational anomalies. Our reserve levels are still being increased for future capital projects, but as proposed, there's no rate increase this year. The rates, which are in effect now, would just be incorporated into the 2024 tax rate bylaw, because that's how we actually allocate the revenues for that area through the tax billing. But other than that, nothing really much to add, and either Adam or I could respond to any council's questions.
Right, so are there any questions? Recommendations before us to receive the information and approve the budget? Councillor Koulos? We move it? Councillor Koulos moving it, seconded by Councillor Henry. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to Janice's report on the Peterborough County OPP.
Thank you. Yes, so this is with regard to the new OPP detachment board that will be created upon the Community Safety and Policing Act coming into force, which has been proclaimed to come into force on April 1st of 2024. Back in 2021, as a result of this new legislation coming forward, the local municipalities who are served by the OPP in the County of Peterborough, so that's everybody but Cavan Monaghan, as well as the 2 First Nations, Kirk Lake and Hiawatha, were tasked by the province, as was every other municipality served by the OPP in the province, to provide them with a proposal for what the decomposition of that detachment board would look like in our area. So we did, as a group, get together and come up with a proposal that was then endorsed by all of the councils, and that was submitted to the province. The composition is highlighted here for you in the report. It's a big board, 15 members. But there were specific provincial criteria that we had to meet in terms of numbers of community reps, numbers of provincial reps. And of course, the communities all wanted to have a representative from their own community as well. So that's how we got to the 15. So we have been advised in October of 2022, we were advised that our proposal did meet the requirements of the province. As I mentioned, the act has been proclaimed to come into effect on April 1st. However, as of the date of writing this report, the regulations still haven't been approved that actually put our board in place as we have proposed. There's other regulations to come as well with regard to remuneration, training, term of office. So we still are working in a bit of a void. We don't have all the information, but we did feel it would be important to kind of identify who our member would be on that board. And I'm recommending that once the regulation is passed, it actually puts effect to our board. At that point, we would bring forward the actual bylaw to make the appointment to the board that truly exists. So as Councillor Henry is our current Smith Ennismore OPP Police Services Board representative, and I'm assuming that he would like to continue to serve in that capacity, I think it would make sense for us to have this resolution to make that appointment identified at this point, and we bring the bylaw forth as soon as we had the regulation that actually approves the board.
Okay, before I turn it over to council for questions, how are community representatives going to be selected? Can you give us a little background into how that's going to happen?
Yeah, so when we had the discussions around the proposal that went forward to the province, we really were trying to make sure that there was representation from all of the communities, but not have a huge board. So that's where the 3 community reps came from. And the idea was that all of the communities as jointly would make those
would make those appointments. So the appointments wouldn't be based on geography. It would be based on somebody's background, somebody's knowledge, education, experience, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in mental health, whether it's in school, education. So that would be kind of the criteria for making those appointments. In terms of what that process is going to look like, we do really still have to flesh that out. And I think in creating a terms of reference for the new board, we would speak to that. And try and figure out what that process is. Maybe that process is similar to the process that we used to develop the proposal that went to the province. So the advertising process, the recruitment process would be laid out, applications would be received, they'd be reviewed by perhaps a staff committee and then brought back to all of the councils for ultimate approval. It is a little awkward, but this is what we're tasked with dealing with under the new legislation.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, can I have someone move the recommendation in front of us? Councillor Boyko, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now move on to Mike Richardson about the township Lakefield campground. Mike.
Sorry about that, Mayor Senes. Same problem Ange had, sleeping computers. Yeah, just wanted to do a quick overview. Last year, there had been money put aside for the original, the initial work, looking at the campground to see what was going to be necessary to do as far as upgrades after 40 years and after us taking it over. As part of the initial campground study, one of the things that was discovered and recommended was looking at the infrastructure and creating a new design that would be good for another 40 years. There wasn't, I didn't request money at the time because I'd forgotten and I didn't have a new proposal from DM Wills. So at this time, we're going to council to, I'm coming to council to formalize some money for design and for the tendering, so we could see what it would look like if we are going to do the upgrades. That budget sheet did go in to council and was approved in principle, pending a number of things, but certainly one of them was to get pricing and to find out what it would cost and to look at a design based on the recommendations of the study and of council. So that's what we're coming to council today for.
Okay. Do we have questions? Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the report, Mike. It's for me, it's a little premature as far as moving forward with the project. I think we need to defer this one for some time. You know, the Lakefield campground and trailer park, because really it's two pieces to me. One is the trailer park and the other part is a campground. But essentially it's a township owned business where the majority of the sites are used by seasonal folks on a regular basis. The trailers have been there for years. It's their cottage, and certainly nobody wants to take that away from anybody. But it is a business, and it's a business that competes with other trailer parks in the area, and it's really not open to the public like an arena or a library. In fact, we're putting a vegetative berm or whatever you call it around it to again try to control traffic through the campground, that the public doesn't go through it on a regular basis. You know, so given that the townships decided to basically give up this park space for a business, I think the money that's made there should go to the parks reserves and not towards the upgrade to the campground. Just had a presentation around accessible play areas for kids, and that's where the money should be going, not necessarily towards this business. The replacement of the water, sewer, and electrical infrastructure for the campground is going to be paid through the users of the campground, I believe, and that's the way it has to be. Like all of our facilities, it's user pay. We're being asked to commit a 7-figure amount to this upgrade is what we're gonna be asked to consider. Which will result in increased user fees for the folks that have the pleasure of using that site. My question is, from a business perspective, does those increases in user fees take the campground, make it more expensive than competitors, and at some point, do those individuals move to less expensive campground opportunities? If we borrow $1 million or whatever the number is to do this, we have to have assurances that the ratepayers aren't going to be on the hook 10 years down the road if the campground can't compete in the marketplace. So I'd like more information around the impact of the costs. I know we have a preliminary estimate from DM Wills that was done a couple of years ago. I'd like that information if possible, if it can be done without jeopardizing the RFP process. I understand those reports that were provided to the previous council on some of the questions that I have. I'd appreciate that being circulated to council for information again. Even spending $28,000 more without really understanding the viability of the campground for the next 20 years. I think we need, as council, we need more information. This replacement of the infrastructure has been an issue for a number of years. It can wait a little bit longer, but I think we have to make a wholesome decision on the future of the campground. We have a recreation strategic plan coming as well. And the last time that came out, the campground was reviewed as part of that. The future of the campground, I understand, was part of that. No, sorry, I misspoke there.
No, so the recreation services plan and the strat plan both said you need to do a review of the campground operations
Okay,
as a separate study. So that separate study was done, a
Okay.
fulsome study in 2021, and that's where the decision came from the last council.
so if we could, I would appreciate getting that information before council before we make any decision to move forward with the next phase of the project.
Councillor Boyka.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, through you, I speak, I think, in support of Deputy Mayor Black. I too see the campground not as a service that we offer the people of Selwyn. I think every park that we provide, and hopefully the park that we were talking about earlier in this meeting that we will be providing, is a service to the people of Selwyn. I see the trailer park as not a service that we are offering for the people of Selwyn. I see it as parkland that is being taken away from the people of Selwyn. So therefore a business that is being run on behalf of the people of Selwyn. And so therefore I agree with the premise of what Deputy Mayor Black is saying. Perhaps a way forward that I would suggest and offer for debate to the rest of council is that we pass a motion that delays Mike's motion for going ahead for the reasons that Councillor Back said, and I won't repeat them. And I would propose that I would work with anyone else to put forth a counter motion that I could bring forward to the next meeting. And my proposal would say that we need more information. And after considering all that information, we may very well decide to carry on and let's get the tender and let's move forward. Or when we get this information, we make another decision. And my thoughts are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. We need 5 bits of information. 1, the last council, and I respect all the work that was done, and I know a lot of the work that was done and coming to the decision was politically charged. A great number of people, including the staff and people on council. I respect all the work and the grief that went into that process. But this council has not had a chance to look at that process. So therefore, we're kind of operating in the dark. So 1, we would want the documentation and reports regarding the campground study and the ORCA agreement and any other related documentation. 2, I would like to take a look at the 2022 and the 2023 financial reports, basically the P&L on this business that we are running. And if we look at page 62 of the budget binder, it says in relation to the campground that the net revenues offsetting a portion of the general administration and operation expenses incurred by the township related to the opening and closing and other expenses, along with a contribution for capital replacement requires of the campground, So net revenues offsetting a portion of the general administration. Let's get some detail on exactly what that means. It says, carrying on, the 2023 Lakefield Campground financial statements will be finalized in early 2024. But so let council take a look at those financial statements that will be finalized in early 2024. So that's 2. 3, let us take a look at a business plan for this business, including a market analysis going forward. So let us take a look at the projected profit and loss, including all staff time that is allocated to the operation of this campground, so that we can see if we are making a business decision to go ahead and set up a debenture for a lot of money carrying forward to put infrastructure in the ground that is going to be there for 40 years, then we are saying that we are committed to having campground in that area for the next 40 years. It's a big decision. So therefore, let's look at the business plan that supports that decision, and let's see that it has sound basis. And maybe it does, but we haven't seen one. 4th of 5, let us take a look at the options for structuring and then repaying this debenture to finance the water, sewer, and electrical infrastructure improvements. There are many ways in which it can be done. Staff in earlier discussions today were telling us about one way that can be structured. Deputy Mayor Black was commenting about another way that this can be structured. So there's more than one way of doing this. Let's take a look at the options that we have for structuring a large debenture and how it will be repaid. And E, I would like discussion on, finally, we are moving forward, not with the last one, but a new strategic plan and a new Parks and Recreation plan. Should we take a look at where committing 40 more years of campground use fits within our strategic plan for the township and our strategic plan for the Parks and Recreation? So to recap, with those 5 elements of basically just provide us with this information so we can make an informed decision, would council be willing to say, let us delay until I can bring forward the consultation, a motion along those lines, so then when we get all of that information, we can then make an informed choice?
All right, so is there anyone else that would like to speak right now? Because I think some of the information that John is looking for would be available in reports that we had from the last report that we had done, that past council made the decision to go ahead with a lot of public consultation, I might add. So if that information is available, it isn't something that is necessarily going to take a long time to redo it all over. I don't want to, it's been done. I don't want to. Yeah.
If I could, and that's why, if I could, when I said, give us the documentation and the reports that have already been done, but this council hasn't been given those documentation reports.
Just a second. Can I hear from staff as to what Councillor Boyko has said?
Yeah, so in terms of the utilization study, that's online. That's on our website right now. So you could certainly, we can send you the link, but it's there. So, and we could provide a copy of the agreement. I'm not sure if the agreement is online per se, but we do have information about how the campground was to be operated through Orca on our behalf on the website. But we can provide a copy of the agreement.
All right, I think Councillor Colas had her hand up first.
Through you, thanks. Yeah, I just gonna clarify. I thought we were actually provided this information early in our term. We were provided a chart of resources, and then it was up to us to do our due diligence to read through those. And I honestly haven't read through all of them. I'll be upfront. I called in today to make sure that they were on the list and that we did have them. But we did get those earlier, did we not?
We can verify. There was a list of documents that was provided. We're just having a look here.
I think some things have been provided as well through other questions we've received from members of council
Mhm.
through the term. So for sure, I think a lot of the information is. Because the other thing we would have is the council report that the former council made their decision on. Yeah.
I'm in support of having those kind of recirculated to us as a package. But again, I think like our due diligence was already to go through those when they were provided.
I'm
I'll leave it
agreement
there.
with you, Councillor Koulis. I was under the impression that it had been shared with all members of council because it was bringing up to speed as to what had happened in the past. So it would be, we would be again recirculating, but it was up to members of council to read through that and make yourself aware, because this information and the request was in our capital budget, and those questions should have been maybe posed at that point in time as well. Councillor Henry. Okay, Councillor Boyko.
Yeah, if I could, I listed 5 pieces of information, and we've been talking about we've been talking about the first one. Yeah, so all of that documentation I realized on the website, and I read it all over as part of my due diligence, part of preparing. But is the other things that I've listed that I think I could list better than just writing them down on a piece of paper and saying now in a more formal motion that I could bring to council next meeting. And therefore, so I want staff to be clear, and I'll do this in consultation with staff, or I'll do it in consultation with anybody I want to consult with, to make sure that we're really clear. Here is the information that we're asked. Some of the information that I would like to see, and that Deputy Mayor Black was talking about, was a business plan, a specific business plan. We haven't got that yet. That's not part of the due diligence. Options for structuring the debenture, that's not part of what we looked at through due diligence. So that's the kind of stuff that I would like to discuss, to possibly bring forward, because we need that information if we are going to go forward and commit the township to a large expenditure of money and 40 years of the campground going forward.
I think that you're putting the cart before the horse, Councillor Boyko, because that information would be forthcoming after we found out what the cost would be, and we can't do that until we go to tender. Maybe I'm wrong. Staff can help me here.
Yeah, for sure. So that's when in the capital budget, when this project was included in the capital budget, with the intention it would go forward this year, we didn't include an amount, we included to be tendered. We typically like to do that because we want to get the best price possible. You don't know what the cost is going to be until you actually go out for pricing. And we have seen recent examples where we have had estimates, we went for pricing, we got much better pricing, which is great. So that's why the project was put forward for approval in the capital budget as a to be tendered.
And after you receive that information and that pricing, then you would come forward with options as to how to deal with it. That Councillor Boyko was talking about. You're
For sure.
looking for those options now when we don't even know what the amount is going to be. So
Yeah.
again, I think you're putting the cart before the horse.
So if I can, so absolutely, when the tender was issued, then, Lane's said it before, he'd be coming back with financing options. There are other options that are different that we'd have to work our way through, that aren't necessarily in accordance with the way the project had been talked about before, or in accordance with our agreement with Orca. We can look at those, but it's another option to consider whether it's the right one or not. Certainly, when council made their decision, we went through a lot of work. We did a full study. We looked at the viability of the operation. There was never really very much question about the viability of the operation. It's been a very full operation for many years. The previous operator would have liked to continue. We felt this was a better way for us to move forward. Council was very specific in terms of what we needed to achieve through the operational revenue. And part of that was to continue to have the amount of money that supported our general parks and recreation department available to the department to cover any direct costs we have towards the campground, to provide for the reserve contribution, and to pay for the capital infrastructure improvement. So it was very specific when that decision was made that we indeed needed to do all of those things. And when we did the analysis, that is indeed the basis it was done upon.
Councillor, sorry, Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Sennis, just as a follow-up. So again, with the capital budget, and there was a notion that we should have asked more questions then, but there was no number put in the capital budget for the cost for the reasons you stated. And there was only a placeholder for the income from the first year of Orca on the campground. So we've got zero financial information about how this campground operates today and how it might operate in the future. The issue with the business plan, and I've done this for 20 years. I've looked at business plans my whole life. In fact, I'm the chair of the loans committee for Community Futures. And every loan, whether it's 50,000 or $1 million, has to come through me to review to make sure it's viable in the future. And my question is the viability of the campground once we add $1,000, $2,000 a year to user fees. Is it now a viable business? Because it is a business. And we have a preliminary estimate for what those costs are being that wasn't shared with council, which would give us a ballpark idea of the impact of those user fee increases on the viability of the business. And that's all, that's what we're asking for. So yes, we had some reports, but we have no financial information about the campground operation.
Yeah, so I guess going back to how it would be financed, what the way you're speaking about it is one option. That is not the option that was analyzed when we went through the financial analysis. So when we went through that, the revenues from the campground operation itself, not saying, because in accordance with our agreement with Orca, we can't tell them to add $1,000 surcharge to each, that isn't part of the agreement. It's not the way the agreement is written. And the financial analysis really did demonstrate that the capital improvements over time, of course, you don't store up the cash and then have $1 million to pay for a project like any business. Typically, you're financing that project. So when that analysis was done, it demonstrated that there would be the ability over time to repay that investment through the revenue that we're receiving from the campground. Certainly, we did receive substantially more revenue in 2023 than we had under the previous contract. And again, being the transition year, we see that just continuing to improve. So I'll just leave it.
Janice, the money that we get from the campground is used for what? We get revenues and they're considerable. What is it used for?
That's you, Madam Mayor. So you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. You're okay.
Yeah, so we receive a base operating fee from Orca. We receive a share of the profits from their operation, and we receive a share of profits from ancillary revenues, so things like dock rentals, boat rentals, things like that. And we receive a share of winter storage. All of those are a little bit different in terms of percentages and how they work out, other than the base operating fee, which is 100%. When those revenues come in, they offset all direct costs that we're required to take care of at the campground. We put some money aside into reserve specific to the campground. And then whatever's left offsets operational costs in Department 40, which is Mike's department. So any of the direct costs are taken care of by those fees. We set aside money for the future for possible capital replacement. And then there's money that comes in and offsets parks fees. So that could be administration, it could be money we invest in other parks. Over the last few years, that last number, that excess number, has been anywhere between $40,000 and $65,000.
Which is considerable. And if we didn't have that money, it would be coming directly out of the taxpayer to help to pay for Parks and Rec and the rest of the operations of the corporation. So it's something that is viable. It is a good business practice, has been in the past. And I think the only way that we can move forward is the way that we have been given with this recommendation to go to tender to find out what it's going to cost for the water and wastewater. And once we have that information, we will be able to see what direction we want to go based on those numbers. At this point in time, it's all, we have nothing we can grab onto. So I don't know if someone was making a motion to do something otherwise. If you were, please put it forward and we will vote on it and then we will go. Yes.
Thank you, through Mayor. Yeah, we do have some numbers to work with. We have a preliminary estimate that was done a couple of years ago. So we do have information to move forward with some of the information we're requesting, but I will move that we defer the motion today in waiting for a motion that Councillor Boyko will bring to the next council meeting.
I will second that.
So you're moving a motion to defer
For
this decision.
This recommendation.
Yeah,
Until next council meeting, when we can look at Councillor Boyko's
motion.
motion. So it's a deferral. We're not saying no. It's a
Yeah.
deferral. And that
Okay,
motion-
but
that motion-
we're deferring
The-
a motion to get a motion. We don't, I know you've talked about what you want in your motion, John, but.
So at this point, we're just asking for a deferral of this motion
Mhm.
to the next meeting,
Mm.
to be clear.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor, moved and seconded, all in favor? That fails. We now have a recommendation that is before us from staff, and I'm looking for someone to move that motion.
Recorded vote, please.
Yeah. And I don't see anyone who is willing to move that motion. Yes, the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Koulis, seconded by, if you want to take the chair for a moment, I will second it. I think I can second it anyway, even not leaving the chair, can't I? Yeah. All right, it's recorded vote.
Yes, so this is for the staff,
Yes.
the recommendation in the staff report. Councillor Boyko,
No.
Councillor Koulis,
Yes.
Councillor Henry,
No.
Mayor Senes,
Yes, so that failed.
Deputy Mayor Black.
No.
Motion is lost.
All right, so
If I could, moving forward, I will prepare the motion with the 5 bits of information that I'm going to be asking for, much of which, as Councillor Koulis has said, and we've all agreed, is already there. We've got it already, and we've all reread it already, but let's put it all together in one package with respect, and I won't repeat all of the other things. And I will bring forward that motion. I will share it around so before next meeting so people can help me with it and make sure that it says what we want it to say. And then we can bring forward in the next council meeting. So this is not dying. We're simply saying, let's get more information before we move forward.
well, right now, it has died right now.
For the moment.
To staff. Did Orca have business plans that they were using to operate the park, the campground? And can we have access to those? Or are we even using those?
So we went through an exercise where Orca developed a budget in terms of what they felt the expenses would be. We did some work around what the revenues would be based on the number of sites, the types of rentals, their experience with campgrounds for transient use, that sort of thing. So yeah, that was all worked through as part of our negotiations with Orca. And when we came back to council in 2022, July maybe, we had a bit of a financial analysis as part of that report that kind of demonstrated all those components.
If I could, Madam Mayor, I would like just to add, and this goes to exactly to Councillor Coulis's question, that at the last Orca meeting, was that last week? There's so many meetings last week. Last week at the last Orca board meeting, I asked the executive director, because the parks that they look after, that Orca looks after, Warsaw, and Beavermead, and Lakefield, the reports on those parks came up as part of our agenda, and I asked specifically for a financial reading of the Lakefield Park, and that is being prepared and will be presented by Orca soon. So they are working on that as well. It's not ready yet. So we tried to get the information from them. Yeah, yeah, they need the audit to be done.
Great. So we'll just. Wait until next meeting, I guess.
Just point of order. So the motion, the recommendation from staff today, can it be brought forward again by the mover and seconder to another meeting? How does that work? So if Councillor Boyko's new motion isn't supported, can we bring back, and how do we bring back the motion and recommendation from today to council?
Yeah, so what you had, your motion was to defer.
Yeah.
So if John wishes to put forward his notice of motion, he could put it in writing and provide it to us so that it can be included 6 days at least prior to the next council agenda. Then it will be on the agenda for council to deal with then.
Okay, thank you.
Including the staff report.
No, we
No.
won't bring back the staff report
No.
at this point.
No. We just voted against it.
Yeah, you just voted
We
against it.
voted against it, Ron. It won't come back.
So
No.
So sorry, if you want to reconsider the last motion that was lost, then in order to reconsider it, those that voted on the opposing side would have to bring back a motion to bring it back.
Yeah, reconsider.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have consent items in front of us here. Is there any thing that anyone wants pulled? Councillor Coulis?
Sorry, I can't remember the number. I'm so sorry. It's the one regarding the water testing. I can't remember which one that's under from the health unit.
Oh,
I'm so
in
sorry.
correspondence?
Yeah.
So the water testing is in Peterborough County and there is a recommendation there.
Okay.
Yeah, you want that pulled?
I'd like that pulled, yeah.
Is there anything else anyone wants pulled? Councillor Boyka?
I would like number 1, the classy chassis pulled, and the number 19, the environmental defense and the OEB letter.
So we will go with the rest of the consent items. Can I have someone move and move those items? Councillor Henry, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we will go first to the correspondence. And the first one is the classy chassis.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Perhaps staff will know, I'm in no way opposed to doing something that's going to raise money for Sick Kids Hospital, but all it says that I saw, unless I missed it, was a significant event. What is the significant event?
It's in relation to a special occasion permit.
Yeah, so
So in order, so the AGCO has something that is called a significant event. It's not our term, it's something used under the special occasion permit. And in order for them to get a special occasion permit
Right.
for a public event, it has to be declared as a significant event.
So is it?
It doesn't define what
So
significant
it
event
could
is.
be a
I
concert, it
would
could
suspect
be a-
that the AGCO is asking municipalities to consider requests. And is this event helping the community at large? Is it significant in nature?
How are we to know that if we don't know what the event is?
Oh, the events are, they're,
in the
they're
paper.
events that are being hosted at Classy Chassis. They do, like rallies at the, like bike rallies at
Okay.
the event, and they raise money. So folks come in, they're part of the rally. Sometimes they actually put on like a show, like I've seen,
Yeah.
they have ramps and the motorcycles go over the ramp. It's crazy. I don't know why anybody would even ride a motorcycle anyway.
Evil Knievel, man.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yep.
Okay, got
So
it. Okay,
they raise money at the event.
perfect. That's all I want to know. Great, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to number 19, which is the OEB.
Yes, number 19. Yeah, I saw this with great interest because we are looking at development in Selwyn, and hopefully we're looking at development in Selwyn over the next long while. And the OEB, it looks like to me, and I will need to have this explained to me if I'm misunderstanding this, but they voted to end a subsidy for methane gas, for natural gas and gas pipelines in new developments. And I saw their purpose in doing this as twofold. One, and again, please tell me if I'm misunderstanding this. One, they want to encourage the consideration of other options for heating and cooling, ground source heating or heat pumps or other options that may becoming available. And B, what they're trying to do, I think, is maintain the principle that development pays for itself. So developers pay for development. Now, if I'm clear on this, that Bill 165 is overturning the OEB decision that was made on December 20th. And so I don't know that is something that I would support as Bill 165, because I support the idea of development paying for itself. I support the idea of development paying for itself. So therefore developers having the incentive, the financial incentive to look at ground source heating or heat pumps or other ways for heating and cooling. So therefore I would be in support of a letter from Selwyn writing to our MPP, to the Minister of Energy and the Premier in support of the OEB decision on December 20th and in opposition of Bill 165, and I would make a motion that we write such a letter.
Right, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this? Deputy Mayor Black.
I'll speak to it through you, Mayor. You know, I think the old question of affordability is two-sided. You know, the cost of any infrastructure, again, we just talked about campground infrastructure, typically spread over a 25-year period. No matter whether it's the electrical hookup to those houses or gas or whatever, you know, the water and sewers and all those sorts of things. So I don't think that's any different from the financial aspects of managing infrastructure for everybody. So the affordability thing, I'm not 100% sure that's, I agree with you there on that, Councillor Boyko. You know, Canada is a cold place, and we've always needed a second source of heating. And again, I've had this conversation a couple of times. To me, natural gas is the least, has the least impact on the environment. Without a secondary source of heat, my fear is people will bring propane in, which you know has to be delivered by. And I've got nothing against propane as a business, but it has much higher carbon footprint with the deliveries and those sorts of things that will have to happen if natural gas isn't there. Hopefully, as a backup to some kind of heat pump system, but. And we certainly don't want people going back to wood fires as backups. And we've had some significant, through climate change, issues where electricity's been out for days on it. And without a secondary source of heat in our homes, there's a great issue around safety for people. So at this point, you know, in Ontario, 39% of the current energy is provided by natural gas. and only 25% is provided by electricity. This has come from an IESO report. They've also said that they'll need to increase electricity volume, double it in the next 25 years. So essentially what that's telling to me is they won't have the electricity we need to operate all those homes for 25 years. So there is a life cycle to these pipes, and they can be used for other things down the road. So from a worst case scenario, natural gas as a backup, as a secondary source, I think is viable at this point in our goal of getting to a complete green energy grid down the road. I'd certainly like to see more incentives provided for heat pump, because they are more expensive as well. They're $20,000 versus a $5,000 purchase. The good ones, where you don't need a secondary source. That's my.
I'm not allowed to talk on them.
No, I know, but that's my experience anyway. So from affordability point of view, where a normal furnace is 5,000 versus, upwards of $20,000. There's rebates and stuff like that get it down to 15, I think, but it's still from an affordability point of view to build that house. And we have an affordability issue with building houses at this point. So there's a whole bunch of factors involved here that for me, it makes more sense to have it available at this time. Hopefully it's not a primary use, but it's certainly better than having diesel trucks running around and other trucks delivering wood and having, the particulate matter. Canada's been identified as something of worst air quality. Again, climate change associated because of the forest burning. Do we want more people in subdivisions with wood stoves going? I think that's a step backwards. So as a secondary source of heating, I think natural gas has the least impact on the environment at this point.
Thank you. It's interesting. I know, John, you had Steve Paikin here last week, and I'm sorry that I missed his talk. I was out of town, but he had on one of his programs on TV panel that was talking about natural gas and the alternatives. And I made notes while I was watching this program, and some of the things that came out of it was that there's no technology in place to replace natural gas when the temperature is minus 30 or 40 degrees. Electrification is not keeping up with the demand. We don't have enough to service our homes now in this country, never mind going forward if we were to stop the natural gas or propane. As our deputy mayor said, we need power that is affordable and reliable. And for the short and medium term, we are going to need natural gas and propane because electrification just isn't there to support what would have taken the place of. And here in our agricultural society, they dry crops and they have to depend on propane or natural gas. Electric heat would not do that. So we have to think about the agricultural group as well. I already supported the government stance at the county level, and I don't feel that I can change my stance now. So I can support your recommendation. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Councillor Colas.
I'm going to go right back to basics, and I can't support this because it's not our jurisdiction.
Well said. Councillor Henry.
Thank you through you, Mayor Senes. I personally cannot support this. I made my position pretty clear, I believe, back in December when we had some challenges back then on it, and no, we will not be supporting it.
Thank you. Now we will go on to the County Peterborough and the labs.
Through you, I just wanted to clarify with staff, how many people are on wells and septic in Selwyn? Or do we have those stats? I know we're transitioning, so maybe we don't.
Well, pretty much everybody outside of Lakefield and the little area in Woodland Acres. So
So the majority of Selwyn will be impacted by
You,
this.
you know it.
Correct. Thank you. And then I just didn't know if there was any additional information from the county level that might speak to this issue, given it's in the county report.
We supported the letter. Yeah, we did.
I just
Yeah.
didn't know if there's any new insights since, but
No.
thank you.
So we, those three things that had been pulled, we need someone to, receive. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Henry, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. So we will now go on to other new and unfinished business. We have a special meeting April the 23rd at 9 a.m. For our strategic plan and recreation services and trails master plan kickoff. And I need someone to move that. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Poulos, all in favor? Harry, thank you. Before we go into closed, we have a bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Sorry, it's a merger agreement for a consent to sever application for property in Ennismore.
Someone move that, please. Deputy Mayor Black, Councillor Poulos, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. And a motion to go into closed. Councillor Boyko, Councillor Henry seconding, all in favor? That's carried. We will meet in the other room.